Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Oh boy, sorry it's a little late. Still going hard to try and fit all the news in, still not caught up, but there's a lot of meaty stuff in this episode that you will want to know. Let's get to it. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all our other patrons. Could not do this without you. Let's get straight to the news. The city of Louisville reached a settlement with Breonna Taylor's family recently, which consisted of $12 million, as well as a number of police reforms, including an early action warning system to identify officers with red flags, mandatory commanding officer review of all search warrants, mandatory body camera counting from 2 officers of all currency seizures, mandatory written approval of SWAT matrices before search warrants are executed, encouraging officers to perform at least 2 paid hours a week of community service in the communities in which they serve, housing credits for officers to live in certain low-income census tracts in the city, hiring a team of social workers to assist with dispatched runs, commitment to bargain for increased drug and alcohol testing in the next FOP contract, overhaul of processes for simultaneous search warrants, mandatory EMS paramedic presence for all search warrants, elimination of the closed by exception basis for closing investigations into officer conduct when there is a retirement or resignation, and a commitment for Metro to negotiate with the FOP in 2021 to expand on the records it may maintain in police officers' personnel files. The settlement, however, does not admit any wrongdoing on the part of the city or the police. The unresolved criminal investigation remains, with Attorney General Cameron providing no guidance on when or whether charges will be filed against the officers in Taylor's death. A Jefferson County grand jury may hear the case as soon as this week, and the FBI is also conducting a separate investigation. Nick Hanauer, a venture capitalist along with David Rolfe, founder of Local 775 of the Service Employees International Union and president of the Fair Work Center in Seattle, initiated an investigation from the politically neutral RAND Corporation to investigate what income in America would look like if inequality had not exploded over the last half-century. The result? The median income would be doubled from $50,000 to $100,000. Can you imagine? With diminishing returns toward the top, everyone in the bottom 90% would be making significantly more if wages had tracked GDP as they used to. As Rolfe says, quote, "From the standpoint of people who have worked hard and played by the rules, and yet are participating far less in economic growth than Americans did a generation ago, whether you call it reverse distribution or theft, it demands to be called something," end quote. Hanauer says, quote, "I want Joe Biden and Donald Trump to have to wrestle with this. They should look at their constituents in the eye and explain, here's what I'm going to do to get you from $50,000 you make today to the $100,000 that you deserve. If you're not addressing the problem at that scale, then you're not addressing the problem. You're just pretending," end quote. Put that way, right now no politician I know of is addressing this problem. But we certainly know that the current administration has had 4 years to address it and has done absolutely nothing. And nothing will happen unless we force it. Trump has been on a campaign of lies through the Rust Belt recently, claiming that he has brought a renaissance of manufacturing jobs to the states by cherry-picking job gains after the massive pandemic job losses that resulted largely from his misinformation campaign on that front, or just before the trade war he began, which decimated the industry as well. That and outright lying. The reality is that manufacturing across the U.S. is still down 720,000 workers from February, with the pandemic more than wiping out the overall modest gains of 500,000 from Trump's first 3 years in office, which had been matching the pace of growth under Obama. The general trend, even before COVID-19, was down as well. A Bureau of Labor Statistics analysis released September 1st said that even pre-pandemic, the sector was on track to lose nearly 450,000 workers by 2029, the most of any area in the economy. Michael Hicks, an economist at Ball State University who studies manufacturing, says, quote, "The returns from layoffs are probably over, and so if that's the case, if we see a second term of the Trump presidency, I would expect manufacturing employment to not even crawl back to what it was at the end of the Obama administration," end quote. At the same time, output has made a notable recovery due to increased automation, which, as we know, has been the overarching bleed from the industry for decades. When Trump moved to impose tariffs on Chinese steel, aluminum, and other products, that only served to accelerate the effect. As we've discussed before, when workers lose their jobs in manufacturing, they are most likely to be rehired in the service industry. Low levels of education and barriers to relocation mean that they typically end up working in restaurants. Between 2000 and February 2020, manufacturing lost about 5 million jobs. Over the same time period, the food services industry gained roughly the same number per Labor Department statistics. Manufacturing workers made an average of about $29 an hour in July, while food service employees made an average of $16, exemplifying how automation has been gutting income in the shadows. Except that now, laid-off factory workers won't even have that to turn to, because restaurants are the hardest hit industry in the pandemic. It turns out that economists predicting 40% permanent job loss were underestimating. As of August 31st, 163,000 businesses have indicated on Yelp that they have closed. That's down from the 180,000 that closed at the very beginning of the pandemic. However, it actually shows a 23% increase in the number of closures since mid-July. In addition to monitoring closed businesses, Yelp also takes into account the businesses whose closures have been permanent. That number has steadily increased throughout the past 6 months, now reaching 98,000, representing 60% of closed businesses that won't be reopening. Yelp's data shows that closures have continued to rise with a 34% increase in permanent closures since mid-July. Restaurants, bars, and nightlife ventures have been the hardest hit. 32,000 restaurants closed as of August 31st. Permanent restaurant closures are slightly above Yelp's total average at 61%. Retail saw a similar increase in permanent closures since July, rising 10% to a total of 58% permanent. That's out of 30,000 closed retail businesses. In short, the recession will be long and brutal, and even the crap jobs that people have been forced to take after losing better ones are no longer available. Without drastic improvement in economic policy, America will continue to lag the rest of the world in recovery, and we already lagged in quality of life before the pandemic. On top of this, Florida polling is showing that the deluge of conspiracy theories and misinformation carpet-bombing voters continues to pull more into Trump's fold. Latino voters, traditionally Democratic, are slowly being pulled to the right as QAnon and other groups blanket them with an alternate reality, in which Biden is part of a deep state pedophilia ring, planning a race war, and all sorts of other insanity, just as happened to Hillary in 2016. It's being delivered through every form of media, including radio and especially WhatsApp. Truth is giving way to lies and conspiracies. We're watching the death of rational thought and the rise of a culture of insanity in real time. This is the enemy, of which Trump is only the head. If he wins, we'll have a whole host of new problems, but even if he loses, we'll still have a population descending gleefully into the dark ages to deal with. A small but important bit of progress in the sports world, the NCAA is mandating every Division I program give its student athletes Election Day off, going forward, starting with November 3rd this year. No Division I program will be able to hold practices or competitions on that day. As with the healthcare issues discussed yesterday, this is one of those "how is this not universal" issues. It's beyond my comprehension how we can tout democracy as our defining trait as a country and not have the election day be a celebrated holiday. It should be the greatest of our holidays. It should be a week off, with election day extended across that week. Cast your vote any day of the week and celebrate the peaceful transition of power by the will of the people. There should be parades. There should be democracy reform marches. There should be parties. Instead, a mythical Easter bunny gets more fanfare than our most cherished value. This must change, and we must change it. Check out Represent Us to see how you can help pass democracy reform through your state. New York City high schoolers have banded together to create a paper that covers local issues all the way up to international. They even interviewed Yang back in July. Nonprofit journalism is vital to the success of democracy and society, all the better when the youth are included. This paper is a great example of how it should be. If you want to see their interview with Andrew, it's in the links below. Yang and Hudson, New York Mayor Kamal Johnson will host a virtual town hall today, September 17th at 5 p.m. Eastern. The discussion will focus on UBI, the Hudson Up UBI pilot program launching in Hudson this fall, and other economic and social issues. Tune in at the link below. The UBI film documentary Inherent Good has finally dropped, and it is straight fire. Trey Crowder uses his signature Southern twang to introduce the problem and the solution in swift, simple, straightforward fashion that really hits home. It includes Andrew Yang, it includes UBI trial recipients, it includes awesomeness. Check it out at the link below. They ask for your name, email, and zip, but you can just use bogus info if you're uncomfortable with that. Finally, some good news is peaking on the stimulus bill front. Democrats' holdout strategy appears to be bearing fruit, as the White House and a bipartisan committee are now both advocating for a $1.5 trillion package, 3 times greater than what the Republican Senate proposed with their emaciated skinny bill, which so many on both sides were pressuring the House to accept. The committee bill includes a compromised $450 extension of UI bonuses for 2 months, followed by the lesser of $600 or their past wages. It also includes $500 billion for state and local governments, funding for the USPS, COVID testing, small businesses, and rental assistance, and, very importantly, a second round of stimulus checks. Neither side is happy with the amount, and it's unclear if it will pass at all, much less soon. However, it's a big move in the Democrats' direction of meaningful relief for Americans. The House has committed to remain on standby for a vote until an economic aid package is passed. I think we all wish that the bipartisan committee would just take all of the money they're proposing to spend and put it in a UBI so there can be no argument over pet projects or corporate bailouts or anything other than money going directly to the people. Write or call your representatives and let them know that that's the right way forward. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the cost of inequality, manufacturing, job loss, election holiday, Iris paper, and stimulus bill articles. Watch Inherent Good, help recruit other organizations to the cause and get everyone to sign the UBI petition. Flood Congress and Trump with calls, tweets, and letters using the Resist Bot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, United Way, or the H3 podcast thread. And don't forget to Yang Daily.